Welcome to episode number 262 of the LSR podcast. My name is Matt Brown, joined each and every week by the brightest minds in all of the gaming industry. With me, I have two of those bright minds in Pat Evans and Sam McQuillan. Find all of their great work over at LegalSportsReport.com. As always, we'll talk some Fresno State shenanigans. We will see what's going on with the federal excise tax. Got a state roundup, an opinion on just, do we believe in this whole product versus marketing? Is it both? Is it neither? Whatever that is, we'll have an opinion section at the end. Sam is going to have to defend a horrible Girl Scout cookie take as well along the way. But let's kick things off here, Pat, with Texas. We talk Texas every single week. We were kind of like, hey, probably not going to happen in 2025, even though there was some positive momentum. And now we've got a representative who said, damn right, it's not happening in 2025.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, we're talking about Texas all the time now, and I think that's for good reason. It is the big outlier. It's a potentially massive handle that would be probably the largest in the U.S. So companies need it. They want it. And we've been seeing tons of momentum just snowballing to say, hey, let's get it done. But of course, we've always had Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, who's been problematic in terms of his just staunch opposition of gambling expansion. Then there was essentially no way he was going to bring a bill.
What did he say? Like, I'm just not letting it happen?
Basically. But
there's no way.
Yeah, there's no way he's letting it on the Senate floor, even if it passes the House, which it did in 2023. Well, now we've got a representative. Well, so, you expected, okay, well, they got it done in 2023. Could they get it done again this year? Well, there's one problem. They have 26 new Republican representatives in the House who largely are against gaming, and including one Representative Matt Shaheen, who said, this bill will die. Like, we're not letting this through. This bill is dead. Like, this will not pass the House. And so any hope to have it get through like 2023 is pretty much dashed right there from the get-go. And even if it did pass the House, you're kind of dead in the water as soon as you get to the Senate because of Patrick. And that's despite, Governor Greg Abbott saying he would be supportive of the bill. So, it's pretty much dead this year, which is unfortunate unless some miracle, I think, happens.
It is interesting because it almost seems like you have the governor kind of playing the game, right? Where he understands, all right, there's some pretty powerful people here who are in support of this. So let me say what I can say, because it doesn't really matter anyway, because right. It's never going to, so I can say what I can say and look good to those people who might be pouring money into elections and things and stuff that I might want to do later down the line and could be beneficial to me. And it's kind of like no harm, no foul, because again, it's not up to him anyway. Right.
Right.
So he's just kind of like, I'll
Which
say what
crazy.
I think is, he's kind of like,
He's the governor.
Yeah. He's like, I think I'll just say what sounds best for me. And then we kind of move on from there. But it's a giant bummer in this, because if you actually read the direct quote here, and it's just it is as disgusting kind of as it sounds here. It says, I have a whole coalition of organizations, and we're going to make sure it's dead, that it's 6 feet under, he says. So yes, he wants it
very
to be
Texas.
6 feet under. And Sam, this is the interesting part of this, because I was under the impression, as a child anyway, young, naive Matt, that thinking, you know what, maybe I actually want to grow up and do stuff in politics, and thinking I was going to do all these things. And I'm going to represent the voice of the people. Well, the people did speak, and the University of Houston found that 60% of Texans actually support online sports. Like 73% support casinos within the state. So again, a overwhelming majority, at least for some form of gaming there in the state. Yet you have someone who will say, I have a whole coalition of organizations, and we're going to make sure it's dead, that it's 6 feet under.
Yeah, that sounds very personal, right? You want to make sure this bill isn't coming back from the dead like a Uma Thurman in Kill Bill or something. Like they don't want to they literally want to bury this bill. And to your point about political philosophies, I think it's in Minnesota, Pat, correct me if I'm wrong, where one lawmaker was talking about, I know it's like hard to do this. I know maybe people don't like gambling. I know there's a million different factors at play, but at the end of the day, we're hearing from everyone that they want this. And, is the job of a lawmaker to represent what the people want? Is it to represent their best interests? I know back when the country was founded, there was a lot of debate about whether you should give everyone the right to vote or if you should only give people who own land who are educated the right to vote, because, most normal people, some would argue, really don't know what they're doing or can be easily influenced or swayed or could be making a bad decision. And again, that's why you have a system where you have representatives that are supposed to represent not just the people and what the people say they want, but supposed to be the best interest of the people as well. So you can kind of frame it any way, depending on what side you are on the issue here. Obviously, Abbott and those against, or Dumont, or what's the lieutenant governor's name? Patrick. Yeah, sorry. There's so many different.
We got to keep a lot of names straight.
Yeah, and especially for a state where nothing's really happening, but it's a situation where they have the power and the other side doesn't have the power, and if there's more money involved, it doesn't seem like that's changing anything so far. You have to kind of wonder what it's gonna take. It's a state we've been looking at. I think we could call it like Texas talk. We've had a segment every one of these weeks. So yeah, it's tough when the people say they want it, and then the politicians can say, well, no, actually the people don't really know what's in their best interest. But no, that's why we have a bunch of other states we can talk about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Pat, I'll admit, I was at least a little naive with the Texas stuff, because it seemed like to me that Sands Corp would not have come in and bought the Mavericks if they had not gotten at least enough people to give them at least buying signals, right? As to far as this goes. And maybe it was the governor and they thought that was good enough. And that actually is not ended up being good enough. But I'll admit, I didn't think necessarily it was going to get done this year, but I thought we might kind of get it some really, really good momentum here to where we're sitting here when 2027 rolled around. We're like, okay, this is inevitable at this point. And yet we haven't gotten where I thought we were going to be. Again, little naivety on my side, because I'm just the way the Sands Corp usually operates and the way that, you're going to come in and spend $5 billion to buy an NBA team where they basically say, hey, listen, we're doing this because we want to be part of the community, AKA, hey, we're doing this because we want to build stuff here in the community and whatnot. I thought maybe they got buying signals somewhere along the way, and I guess I'm wrong.
No, I mean, I would be in that same boat, and I think a lot of people are in that same boat with you of there's that. I mean, now Miriam Adelson's pouring money into the state, trying to Sam's point, convince these politicians, hey, this is something we need to do. I mean, Tillman Fertitta has done a lot of that as well, and he of course owns the Rockets, and got to imagine Jerry Jones and Mark Cuban have done all the similar. I mean, they've all talked about wanting it. What more powerful voices could you want in a state that loves their sports and to your point, Matt, reading that poll, want sports betting. And yeah, with the House progress in 2023, you would imagine it would continue that building up to the 2027 when Patrick's no longer in charge and maybe you get somebody more friendly to it. Again, something could happen in the House that we're unaware of, and this guy doesn't end up burying it 6 feet under. But I mean, I guess that's why I have to keep watching all year.
There you go. Yeah, you just got to keep watching all the stuff so that we don't have to. Sam, unfortunate stuff that we have to deal with sometimes in this industry as well. And, a couple of different times we've had to talk about players or teams or colleges or whatever. And here we are with another one in Fresno State.
Yeah, Fresno State is just the latest school involved in a potential sports betting scandal. You had the local paper, the Fresno Bee, reported last week that two guards, Jalen Weaver and Zayon Collins, were both suspended before Saturday's game against Air Force, which the Bulldogs ended up losing. And then it came out, ESPN did some reporting that it was related to a betting inquiry. So that's all we really knew at that time. It was two of the school's leading scorers, and they've had just a terrible season, their worst in history, actually, 5-23 and counting. They have plenty of tough matches coming up before the end of the season. And then some more reporting came out from Action 30, saying that allegedly the players are under investigation for betting on their unders and rebounds and point totals. So that's player props, stuff you can easily manipulate, similar to what happened with Jonte Porter, the infamous NBA player who basically told guys part of a gambling ring, hey, I'm not going to play that much tonight, bet on my unders. And then all of a sudden at DraftKings, Jonte Porter under 8 points was the most bet prop, and it's right above LeBron James and Luka Doncic. So definitely set some flags off here. So, but in this case, it wasn't like an unusual amount of betting, at least as far as we know. It was the school got an inside tip, basically saying, watch out for this. So now they've been suspended from the team. The NCAA has now launched an investigation. The Mountain West Conference came out and said they're reviewing the eligibility of both players. So they haven't really come out and said it's gambling related, but all the reporting is would suggest that it is. And earlier this season as well, in January, Michael Robinson, also part of Fresno State, he left the team. We don't know exactly why, but he's apparently been named in a betting inquiry as well. So yeah, this is just the latest thing to happen. You know, we had Eastern Michigan getting flagged for unusual betting activity where earlier this season, where that was these large bets were flagged by IC360, which is one of these companies that monitors this stuff and watches out for unusual betting activity. So those games were flagged. We have the former Temple star Hyshir Miller is under federal investigation for allegedly manipulating games as it relates to their first half point spreads last year. So we've had this wave of college sports betting scandals or investigations. In some cases, it hasn't led anywhere. I think that's an important thing to note. Like you had Terry Rozier was being investigated on the Miami Heat earlier this year. NBA came out and said, we didn't see anything wrong. So I think we have to remember that, innocent until proven guilty, but we are seeing more and more of these pop up, whether that's a result of the industry doing its job, the legal industry flagging things, or at the same time, as the industry grows and you see ads everywhere, people are more aware of sports betting. Obviously it was happening in the shadows before it was all legal, but people are more aware of it now, especially younger guys on these teams. So it's definitely something you got to watch out for. It seems to be growing in terms of the reporting, but we'll find out more what happens with Fresno State. It's an unfortunate situation, but one we definitely need to give attention.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because as this came out, I started kind of connecting the dots with a lot of stuff. And as far as team sports go, it seems like it's pretty much basketball for us, right? And it's because basketball is the most individual team sport that there is, right? And so it's pretty easy for an individual in a basketball game to, let's just say, for shenanigans to happen and it not be incredibly obvious, right? I mean,
they can influence it easily.
Yeah. I mean, you miss shots in basketball. You have off nights in basketball. And so if you have off nights, it's not a glaring thing, right? Like you're not going to see this. The only one that can really affect the outcome of a game in the NFL is the quarterback. These quarterbacks make absurd amounts of money. We're never having to worry about that ever. And so like NFL is pretty much insulated, right? Over on the baseball side of things, I mean, in theory, I guess, there are over-unders on how many hits a guy is going to have in a game and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, like that, I don't think is ever really going to become a problem for us with all of that in betting. So really it is a basketball thing because, hey, listen, a rebound prop example is a great example, right? Whether you get a rebound right, you can make it look like you're getting a rebound. I mean, like you can go up and try to get the and just like, oh, you didn't quite get it.
I missed it. Yeah.
Tapped it a different way,
or whatever. Like it is very easy in basketball to make it look like you're giving an effort and still not being able to get to the number. So I'm not saying that anything needs to necessarily be done. I think it's worth pointing out yet again, this happened in a state in which there is no legal sports betting. So it can't be this whole, see, you legalize sports betting, look what happens, right? It's like, no, if bad people want to find their way to people, bad people will find their way to people. So like, let's not start going and pointing fingers at sports betting getting legalized. This is actually a good thing. We keep saying over and over again, because we're catching these people now. Like this has been happening forever. You can look at, there's documented cases going back decades, right? Of all of this nonsense. And so at least we're catching some of these people now with all of this, but it does seem to be a basketball problem. And it kind of seems to be a college basketball problem because even in the NBA, I mean, look, if a G League guy comes up, they probably just shouldn't offer props on dudes that are getting called up or, from the G Leaguers. Honestly,
they're doing it less and less too. They're doing it less and less.
Yeah. It's like they probably shouldn't even offer props on those guys, right? I mean, like, because if you get any of these dudes in regular rotation, same deals we're talking about with the NFL, like these guys, like if you guys have ever seen NBA contracts, which I know y'all have, but like if you're listening to this and you haven't, the ninth guy on the bench is still making like $14 million a year. Like NBA contracts are obscene. And so again, the juice is not worth the squeeze for even the 11th guy on the bench to like do nonsense. Right. And so it just it's not I think it's going to be a huge issue there. Outside, I think it's probably a college basketball problem. And I can't sit here and say that I know the answer, guys.
Yeah, and it has been too. When you talk about CCNY, Jack Molinas, like the whole history you're talking about, it's always centered around college basketball. Yeah. And to your point, because it's a lot easier to manipulate the outcome of a game. Like you're going to touch the ball at some point, probably if you're on the court. Versus in baseball, like you're not sure if the pitcher is going to walk you or what they're going to throw, and you only go up to the plate so many times. So there's more opportunities. And then the history of college basketball. Now they're getting paid with the NIL, and that's great and everything, but not everybody is. In a lot of cases, these are young guys playing college basketball as opposed to professional sports. There's young guys do stupid things. You're 18, 19 years old, and some dude is telling you, hey, like nobody will ever find out. Just like, don't grab this rebound. Like, and you think you're invincible. Like you've been a star. So college basketball is the perfect kind of storm for this thing to happen, to your point.
Yeah.
If it can just stay away from Michigan State, which I think all those guys are
and St. John's. Stay away from St. John's.
I mean, we're on a roll right now, and I love it. So let's just keep it away.
If you're listening to this out there, then keep away from Michigan State and St. John's. There we go. That's all we're doing. If you want LSU basketball is so terrible, whatever. Like do whatever you got to do to like get those guys to do something. I'm okay.
Just kidding, of course.
Yeah. All right, Pat. So this is something we've talked about a couple of times on the pod over the years. I've actually brought up a little anecdote from a few weeks ago when Trump was in town here in Vegas and Derek Stevens got some FaceTime with him, and Derek Stevens brought this up with him again. But we are looking yet again at the federal excise tax.
Yeah. So Rep. Dina Titus is again championing. She has been since 2014 at least, to get rid of the 0.25% tax on sports betting as an excise tax, and it's she every time she introduces this, she talks about how she went to the IRS and they don't even know where this money is. Yeah. It's like something like $500 million that's been collected, and it's not being used really at all. It doesn't seem like so. She. Why have it? And, that's this bill. Of course, she's been introducing it for 10 years now. It hasn't moved. I don't know what would make it different this year, except for maybe, Stevens' message to Trump makes something happen on that. I don't know. And then on the flip side, you got the GRIT Act, which would use the excise tax money, which hasn't been used to better understand, and study and fund problem gambling treatment stuff. So interesting kind of two bills there that now are back in session.
And Sam, I think the one thing that I guess most people listening to this do understand, but if not, like the important thing about this is you're sitting here saying like 0.25%, whatever, that's on handle, right? I mean, like, yes, so like, no. I mean, it was put in place again as a thing that they could go and use against bookies and against like the mob and all the different stuff like that. It was yet another thing that they could tack on from a charges standpoint, because like, oh, you didn't pay your taxes either. And then bam, you got to throw this other thing on there. And it's just stayed, around for a long time. And like the problem now is I think it is fair to say it does actually give bookies and offshores and stuff like that at least a little bit of a leg up on the legal guys, because again, I mean, 0.25% doesn't sound like a lot of money, but when you're talking billions of dollars in handle that's coming in, I'll take 0.25% of $1 billion. I'll tell you that. That's for sure. Like give it to me. I feel pretty good about it.
Yeah, no, I bet you would do good things with that money, Matt.
I would. I'll tell you what I wouldn't do is buy your garbage Girl Scout cookies that you have a take on here.
We're already getting into this.
Yes, we're going right into this.
The IRS to
IRS to say. So I was joking because trying to coordinate when we were going to record this, and Pat stepped up and said he could make himself available. And I said, hey, you know what? I'm going to give you some Thin Mint Girl Scout. This is that time of year. You guys that go to the grocery store, you see them. They're standing outside. They're doing everything. They're trying to sell you some cookies right now. And I said, I'll give you some Thin Mints or whatever. And Pat said, deal. So he showed up. Sam comes in way later and said, I can also be available. And I said, well, Sam, since you came in so late and said that you're available, you get those crappy coconut cookies that they put out there. And he said that they're the best
those are the
ones.
best.
They're the best. What? So
I'm
the name of these are what?
These are Samoas, and I'm looking at an article from the esteemed Los Angeles Times right now, the official Girl Scout cookie power rankings.
Okay.
And right up, it's a quadrant, and right up in the quadrant of better frozen and better taste, all the way up in the top, very top corner, meaning it's the best, are Samoas / caramel delights, which
they do have different names depending on where you are. I think it's weird. There's different places where Girl Scout cookies are baked apparently, and they can be named different. Oh. I will defend Sam's take. I do enjoy those cookies. Thin Mints are my favorite, but I do enjoy the Samoas.
I think the Thin Mint, though, and the reason why I'm not arguing with the power rankings here or anything like it, whatever. This is obviously a highly scientific thing that they did. But what I will say is if the Samoas were so good, there would be like Samoa flavored other things like there are Girl Scout Thin Mints, right? Like Girl Scout Thin Mints, you can go and they'll have Girl Scout Thin Mint flavored milkshakes or different like whatever sundaes you can get or this,
it's
that,
just
the other.
mint though. It's just mint.
But
it's just toothpaste flavored.
But it's more than that. It's Girl Scout mint. It's more than that.
Sounds like a gimmick to me. I don't know.
It's and what I will say is I'm kind of the wrong person to ask for that. I don't eat coconut stuff, so I don't eat coconut. So it's always
that invalidates.
It's always going to be at the bottom for me. Like I always hate coconut, but I mean, come on, this is.
You might have led with that.
I mean,
yeah, you could have led with that.
Sometimes you got to like have the discussion, make the full circle, and then we'll come back around here. But if you want to, if you take anything from this, if you want to tweet at us, it's what your favorite Girl Scout cookie is, and go right ahead. Like we'll listen.
Or leave a comment and as you rate us.
Exactly.
But only if you give us
only four or more.
Yeah,
4 or more, and you can leave your thoughts in there, and we'll take it seriously.
I will throw tag-alongs in there as well.
Yeah, so someone mentioned to me about tag-alongs about a week ago, and someone said tag-alongs, and I was like, tag-along doesn't tell me anything about what this cookie is.
Nothing.
So
neither does Samoa. Fairly.
Well, I guess that's true. Though you could guess maybe if you want to, connect the dots or something. Be like, what is a tag along? Do we know what a tag?
They are. So to Pat's point about how some of these cookies have different names in other regions, also known as peanut butter patties, which I think tells you kind of.
Now that would.
I love peanut butter. So, yeah.
Okay, so a tag along probably pretty high up for me then, I would guess.
Yeah,
you know what I'm doing?
That's an okay
Mount Rushmore. Yeah.
It's good. It makes you feel good anyway. It's good for the soul. I'm gonna go buy some boxes of Girl Scout cookies today. So there we go. And then now
they can sponsor this podcast.
Yeah, we'll be able to have we'll be able to have a review next week of like any of the flavors that I've never heard of before. All right, Pat. So as we do each and every week, we'll do our state roundup. We're going to talk Jersey, Oklahoma, Georgia, Maryland, and wrap things up with Missouri. Ready, go.
Yeah, so New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy has introduced his budget proposal for the fiscal year 2026, and it includes almost doubling the sports betting tax from 13% to 25%. Of course, it's a long budget process, so who knows what actually ends up. An industry source told me that it's unlikely to go that high and maybe won't even move at all. So we'll see what happens. Of course, that's why we watch these things. That's why you understand the process of legislators who in New Jersey generally are pretty friendly to the gambling industry and probably don't want to see that tax go up. They said those legislators, the source told me, oh no, I lost my, I can't hear now. I lost my.
Oh no.
I got it.
He's back. He's back, everybody.
The source told me that, the legislators understand, they've long loved the casino industry because of an Atlantic City. Now they enjoy the online gambling growth of employment up in northern New Jersey. So, a lot of headwinds, I think, against that part of his budget proposal. In Oklahoma, Governor Kevin Stitt has reiterated his proposal from 2023, which would give commercial entities ability to apply for licenses at the state level. The tribes have long not enjoyed their relationship with Stitt. We'll see what happens there. It doesn't seem super promising, except for there is a bill moving along that could give a license to the Oklahoma City Thunder, which, seems like could be okay. Apparently the Oklahoma Indian Gaming Association and the Thunder have a meeting next week, so maybe there could be an agreement there. We'll see what happens. Georgia, we talked prior about a bill that would amend the Constitution and allow for sports betting. Now we've got an enacting bill that would give the power to the Georgia Lottery and up to 18 licenses, mostly to the sports teams and Augusta National and the PGA Tour and the NASCAR racetrack, likes that. Again, it's going to be an interesting session in Georgia, as it always is. It's come close in the past, but close only counts in horseshoe and hand grenades. So we'll see what happens there. Maryland, just kind of moving along on online casino. Doesn't seem super likely, but there was a bill introduced that would repeal sports betting, or at least online sports betting. I doubt that goes much of anywhere because you just legalized it by voter mandate.
How long would that take to repeal too? It took them 3 years to launch?
Right. So how long does it
Another
take
3 years to get rid of?
Yeah. So again, not likely, I think, after 2020 when voters said, give us sports betting. And then, they took that long period of time to get it all started. I doubt that happens. In Missouri, old Denny Hoskins has reared his head once again.
This guy.
Now, for a long time, he was a state senator who would doom any sports betting bill that hit the Senate because he wanted to tie it to video lottery terminals. Now he's Secretary of State and denied the emergency rules to get sports betting off the ground. I don't necessarily think this is a retaliatory move because if you did follow this process at all, the sports teams in Missouri started the ballot initiative that eventually legalized it in November because of Hoskins and his inability to get out of the way.
Just filibuster forever.
He'll filibuster from the Ronald Reagan autobiography for years. But I don't think it was necessarily retaliatory. A lot of states have used emergency rules to get sports betting up and running quicker, which kind of is odd. And I think that's kind of what Hoskins is saying, because in the Missouri statute, it says I forget exactly the terms, but it's basically, do residents need it right now? No. So I think that was what it was. So it does set it back a couple of months. I don't think that's that big of a deal. They were going to try to get it up in June, which everybody knows baseball's not the biggest time for sports betting. So as soon as they get it up, it'll probably be sometime in September for the NFL season. So that's about the time you'd want to launch anyway. So it doesn't seem like that big.
It doesn't seem like that. As long as like September 1 probably, would be I'm imagining where they would try to target. Yeah, everything will be fine with all that. Guys, if you want the more in-depth of all of that, of course, legalsportsreport.com for all of those stories up over there. All right, guys, let's wrap it up. Just a quick deal here. I saw something come through the internet which sparked me wanting to figure out what you guys think in all of this, which is it product or marketing, or is it actually neither when it comes to these sports books right now? Because we know the number one and number two, basically since the get-go, has been DraftKings and FanDuel. They have not relinquished those number 1 and 2 spots at all since this has gone on. And we've seen the various different marketing campaigns, everything from the Mannings to Jamie Foxx to JB Smoove to whatever it is, like from these other books trying to do whatever what they can to kind of claw back here. Obviously, PointsBet, when it was a thing, was doing their form of marketing and stuff like that with their people and whatnot. The product part of it is pretty interesting too, because the number 1 and number 2, if we look at Eilers, has been DraftKings and FanDuel from an app standpoint, for a long time now as well. Do we think that people truly care about the product, or is it more about all the stuff that comes along with it? Sam, I'll start with you, but I'm curious as to do you think that people get to DraftKings and FanDuel and they are just so okay with that app and everything that comes along with that app that they're not worried about what MGM or Caesars or Fanatics or any of these other 360, any of these other ones bring to the table?
Yeah, well, first of all, it seems like product is a word that we just heard talked more and more about over the past couple of years. Originally, it was we're going to all be doing parlays, same game parlays. It's going up, and it kind of ties in with what all these CEOs are talking about in their earnings calls. What all the investors are talking about is product wins out. We believe in product, and we saw the real commitment to that. Originally, DraftKings was one of the first to go out and build their own tech stack. They spent a lot of money to buy SB Tech so they could have their own technology, which to them was important because that means that they could wouldn't have to rely on third parties like a Canby that is servicing essentially kind of the same older technology to everyone. And they would say, this will allow us to be creative and do what we want. Now, it's taken a while to realize that for these companies. They kind of started the trend. Once DraftKings did that, then a couple years later, you started to see their product enhancements really realized, and they would cite that as one of the reasons they were on top. You saw Penn move off of Canby, and now they're a little behind, obviously, but they're talking about, we're going to now realize, these benefits from owning our own technology. And basically now to compete, or even to sell investors on the idea of competing, you have to be product focused. And what does that mean? It means you have to have an app that when you log in, it doesn't log you out in 2 seconds. And which you'd be surprised how many apps are still out there where it's like impossible to log in, stay logged in, and then you click on a sport, like I want to bet on the NBA, then I'm going to take Jalen Brunson's over on points, and then all of a sudden the bet is gone and you have to redo it. Like, the whole idea is it should be easy for them to take your money, which means it should be easy to find a bet, place a bet. So you've had companies talk about, we're going to have this innovative thing. We're going to have a search function where you can find bets. Like, yeah, that's great. You have to help people know where they're going to bet and how to bet. And I think once people get on an app, like the first impression is so important. Once you get on an app, you're like, oh, DraftKings is really easy to use, or FanDuel, really easy to use. I know how to do it. For a lot of times too, people are starting off in sports betting. It can be a little overwhelming seeing all these numbers, point spreads, and different things to click on. You've heard some smaller apps like Better talk about how they want to make the user experience just like much easier. And they say like they want to TikTokify it, which I don't know if they're going to ever be able to do that, but they want everything to be easy. And I think these apps, now that they have made that mark in their mind of things being so easy for people, people are just used to it. Like, why would I try another app where I don't even know, or I had a bad experience one time and maybe the app doesn't crash anymore, but a year ago it did. So I'm just comfortable with this one. I'm going to use this one. And you go on the apps themselves and you see them saying, okay, hey, this product enhancement worked. Let's try to make it even better. Let's try to add pictures. Let's try to add scrollable things. Like, people like to interact. So I think they're really listening to kind of the nature of online consumers right now. You want to be able to scroll, select things, customize things easily, and not feel like, it's a stressful process placing a bet. So I do think product is very important, and it's going to continue to kind of be this differentiator until we see somebody come in with a product that's so much better. They haven't been able to yet. So I don't think it'll happen.
Pat, what say you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's obviously a combination of both. It has to be, right? I mean, FanDuel and DraftKings are two of the most notable that do just kind of bombard you with advertising and stuff, which I know a lot of people dislike, and we've seen a lot of complaints about all the advertising, which I understand. But you have to get them to the product at some point, right? But to that point, why don't ESPN and Fanatics and the smaller sports books that are putting a lot to marketing not achieving any sort of significant market share? That's an interesting point when you bring that up. And then to the product side, I think so much of it, besides cool product offerings, is just the user interface. And is it good to use? Is it friendly? Can I easily place a bet that is one I want to make? And I think that's when you talk to people who are betting, it's just, that one sucks. And, and I'm not going to name names, but here in Michigan, we've got plenty of sports books, a lot of the smaller ones. You can't, to Sam's point, you can't even do anything before it logs out, or it won't let you place an actual bet. It just doesn't. It's crazy. I think FanDuel and DraftKings just have it figured out so far to just be really easy to use and look pretty nice, and that's all you need.
Yeah, I think for me, I kind of feel like it's marketing 80% and 20% product. And it's, if you're Pat, I think you kind of ended it with the right things. Like, so long as your product doesn't suck, then I think you're okay, as long as you can get it from the marketing angle. And the reason I say this, if we're in the bubble, we live and breathe this on a daily basis, and we kind of know what people should do and what we think that is kind of the utopian outlook on sports betting, which is everybody has 6 apps on their phone and they are actually comparing prices and they are actually
that's not happening.
But that's not it. That's just not it. And it's people are sticky, and so it's a deal. It's a deal where if you can get them at first, and as long as your product doesn't suck, I you have that person. My guess is over a coin flip at the time. If you can get them and you can get them in, and they don't hate what they get once they get into your deal, then I think you have them over 50% of the time. I mean, I talked to a massive amount of bettors, and you would think Nevada would even be a little bit more savvy just because you've had it for so long and all of these things. But, I talked to a ton of people here in Nevada who don't have Circa, who obviously has better lines and better VIG and, better returns on futures markets and things and stuff like that, who don't have app X, Y, and Z. If you're a golf bettor, BetMGM pays out ties in full as opposed to splitting things up and all. But they don't care because it's like they got this app and like it functions fine. It works good enough. And they're just, seriously, it's like they're not even willing to give anything else a try because like, well, but this is fine. And this is what I know. And it kind of is. So it's like, I always wanted to be team product, and hopefully we evolve over the next decade and everyone, as they become a little bit more savvy with all of this and understand the ins and outs of all of that product will ultimately win out. And it's kind of like, hey man, you got to be putting money into innovation and making sure that your thing works good and all of that. But as of right now, and this is all anecdotally, right? I mean, there's people I know and people I talk to and all of that, but it just, to me, they don't even know the product, right? It's like, does it work for what I want it to do? And I don't get pissed off whenever I log in. If the answer is yes, then it's fine, and if the answer is no, then they go to the next one. And if that one works fine, then they just stick with, then they just stay with that one. So I unfortunately, I think it's vast majority marketing and not enough product as we sit today on February the 27th in 2025.
I think we saw it too with like the best form of marketing is giving people free money to try the app. And we saw companies literally give like $3,000 away to people to come on the app. And then people were like, oh, well, okay, like I got my money. This app sucks. I'm going to leave. Yeah. So you have to have the product in place before you do all that great marketing and promos to get people on it. And they're just going to leave, and that's going to be their impression.
Yeah, it's wild. It's something that'll be interesting. We can revisit in a year even and see, because like, does will ESPN or Fanatics, and I keep going back to those two because then you have the marketing vehicles built in, right? Like, so it's like, obviously you have ESPN and you have Fanatics, which a database of people who have bought something that has to do with sports over the course of however long. So, I mean, they at least are somewhat of a target to all of this. Can they make up any ground? Can they claw back at all? We will certainly revisit this and see what we think about all that. Guys, as always, everything we do here on the podcast, you can find over at LegalSportsReport.com. Go in, please take in all of the words that Pat and Sam and everybody else is putting over there on the site. They are watching, they are reading, they are summarizing, they're doing all of that so you don't have to. So please support their work over there. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe, rate, review. We do appreciate all of that. And if you found us over on YouTube, you can see, for whatever reason, we all decided to sport logos today. It's not a regular thing, but yeah, we logoed up today for the show. So thanks. Good to see us. Go ahead, subscribe to the channel and give us a thumbs up on that. Do appreciate that. For Pat, for Sam, I am Matt. Talk to you guys next week.